Today, we're going to talk about walkback tuning. I don't think I've done a video on this on my channel yet. So I'm joined by Mike Peart again here. Thank you for joining me, Mike. This is going to
Always a pleasure.
This is going to be really interesting, I think, isn't it? Because I think a lot of club archers, a lot of even maybe regional or national level archers, walkback tuning is kind of put down as a important or essential step in the tuning. So I think a lot of people end up kind of, they set up the bow, do the center shot and the limb alignment and all that kind of stuff. Then they'll do the bear shaft tuning. And then they're like, well, I can't complete my tuning without bear shaft tuning, walkback tuning. And then a lot of people then go on to micro tuning, which is probably a topic for a whole nother video. Yep. But what are your thoughts just to kind of get started on walkback tuning and if it's worth it and who should do it?
Now, I had this, it comes up regularly with my students, and I had a student recently and I was trying to talk to her and trying to explain, because she was putting so much emphasis on it and her pressure button had ended up where I wouldn't have put it, and she was looking to find the solution in walkback tuning, and I was trying to think, how do I get across my thoughts, my views? And then I had an epiphany. And I thought the best way to put it across is I worked with 2 Olympic gold medal coaches, probably over the course of 15 years. I was at an Olympic training center for 15 to 20 years. And as an athlete, I was never, ever asked to do a walkback test. Those Olympic gold medal winning coaches never asked me to go do a walkback test. It was never a requirement, and I don't even know if I ever even saw somebody do it. It's just not a thing that Olympic archers, and I'm throwing that word in there, Olympic target archers are required to do. Now, please relax and send me your comments on the video, please. But I'm sort of taking the blame away. I'm not saying this is my opinion, but it is. I'm saying, look, if I've worked with 2 coaches who have delivered multiple Olympic gold medals and they're not asking me to do it, it sort of backs up that I just don't think you need to as an Olympic target recurve archer.
Quickly, if you're enjoying this video, I'm really happy to announce that Mike, who's joined me today, and we're talking obviously about this, Mike is actually going to be doing some exclusive Q&A sessions for my members of my Online Archery Academy members community. So essentially, anyone who's part of that community can hop on a call with Mike, a group call as a Q&A, kind of like a big Zoom call or like you're on FaceTime or whatever, and ask questions directly, technique, equipment, mindset, whatever it is, within reason, to Mike, and Mike's going to be hosting that Q&A session. So this will be a weekly thing, and Mike's going to basically host that, go through the questions that everyone's got. It's going to be really, really good. And I'm super excited that members of my community can essentially get this benefit and get some expert international coaching for a fraction of the price that it would normally cost. So I really hope that you guys take advantage of this. What are you kind of hoping to kind of bring to this? And are you looking forward to this, Mike?
I'm looking forward to it because I'm looking forward to the surprises. I know when we do this type of thing, there's always questions that make me think, and I can always give good, interesting answers, I hope.
Yeah. And I think it's really good for a lot of people to get some feedback, because you might just have a small question that you need to ask, or you're not sure. Someone at the club has said something you want to check on and that kind of thing. And often it's kind of intimidating. You might not want a whole coaching session or a 3-month program with a coach, but to be able to be in a community like this and ask questions with other people, that kind of thing, is really beneficial. So hopefully you join Mike with that. If you're not a member already, go to members.onlinearcheryacademy.com and you can sign up there. That's it for now. Back to the video. Yeah. This is the interesting thing, right? Because you have to think about what walkback tuning is trying to achieve. And a lot of the time, it's very hard to discern. In theory, it's trying to see if there's a deviation in the path of the arrow that's basically making the left or the windage different between each distance. And in theory, it's going to tell you your center shot's too big, your center shot's too small, or your pressure button tension is too high, pressure button tension is too low. But the problem with it, and this is probably where your kind of thoughts are as well, is the center shot really is going to be very hard to differentiate between canting the bow. Because if you're canting the bow and you walk back from the target, so for anyone that doesn't know, I should kind of just back up a little bit, walk back up.
I was just thinking the same, actually.
So
walk back a bit, yeah.
Yeah, the walk back test is essentially you go really close to the target, you shoot some arrows, aiming at one spot, high on the target, and then you group those arrows, and then you walk back maybe 5 meters, shoot and aim at the same spot without moving your sight, do the same, walk back again. And basically you're hoping that as you walk back, the arrows fall in a straight line on the target. Sometimes you might get an angle, like a diagonal, or sometimes you might get a curve on the target as the patterns of the arrows kind of fall. But if you're canting your bow and you walk back, as you walk back, the arrows are going to fall in the direction that you're canting your bow, and it's going to be very, very hard because generally the straight diagonal is going to be more tending towards a center shot adjustment. It's going to be hard to find the difference between a center shot adjustment and whether you're just canting the bow a little bit. And the amount of the cant it can be tiny once you get back to 40 or 50 meters. That's going to make the arrows kind of go down, like a diagonal. And then you think, okay, well, if we're not looking at if we ignore that and we assume the center shot's okay and we can't really differentiate too much because of the canting, then maybe at least we can look at the pressure button. But I think you and I would both agree that the only time we really look at the pressure button is if we're doing micro tuning. So why would you base your pressure button position, i.e. the stiffness of it, not the center shot, on this random curve that might give you crap groups at the distance you're shooting in the competition? So this is the kind of issue I guess I have with the walkback, is because you're not really fixing anything. And if your competition, if you go to the Olympics and your competition is who can get the straightest line as you walk far from the target, then this would be a great tuning test. But last time I checked, that hasn't been included in the schedule for LA yet, I don't think.
And I think you've brought up the canting, absolutely true. I think you're missing something that's even more common. How many archers actually have their sight absolutely upright?
Yeah.
Now, me and you do, but I can tell you a lot of the time when I join teams, even international teams, some of them have never looked at that. I've even had international archers who are even unaware that their front of their sight could be adjusted. They'd put it together when they got their sight, or their coach did, and they never thought of it or looked at it again. So It could be your bow is dead upright, your tuning is perfect, and your adjustment screws on the front of yours should be your sight. Just have your sight at a slight angle, and now we're going to start fiddling around with the tuning of your arrow because your sight isn't upright. Yeah. And by upright, we mean, so if you hold your bow, you either have it in a bow vise or you hold it up against a wall. So basically when the bow is exactly vertical, your sight is exactly vertical as well. So we set that up with a spirit level to make sure that's exact. So I think there's even more people would have this tune of arrows going off to the side, and it's purely just their sight. Or no, do you know what? I've just corrected myself there.
Yeah, well, this is so. But this is, I think, what you're thinking is correct here, because what you're thinking of is a lot of people get this issue when they think they need to do a walkback because they've gone from 70 meters to 30 meters. They've moved their sight, and then their arrows have gone left or whatever. And then this is where
on the walkback test they wouldn't get that because they'd be leaving their sight still. So I'm mixing up the two there. Yeah, you're right. I'm mixing the two up.
But people, I think this is a really important point with the sight adjustment, because a lot of people come to me and ask about the walkback off the back of doing what you just mentioned.
Yeah, that's why I got the two, because it is the most common. So the most common thing people will notice, even if they're not doing a walkback test, back in the day when they were doing feet rounds, if you start at 90 and your sight's in one position, and by the time you get to 30, you're 3 turns over to the right, that's going to be the most apparent thing. So that would have been what pushed people going to do a walkback test, wouldn't it?
And again, it's oftentimes, most likely, like you said, either the sight isn't straight, or the sight's straight and you're canting the bow, or somehow in the UK maybe the wind has picked up in the evening or the afternoon and things have changed. But in actual terms of doing the walkback, let's kind of play devil's advocate a little bit here. Can you think of any benefit of doing one?
Yeah, if I'm a field archer
Okay. Yeah.
and I'm going to go from shooting 60 meters to 5 meters to 20 meters to 50, of course, I can see that as a target archer, I knew every time I come 20 meters closer, I needed to put a half turn on my sight to the right. No problem, no bother. But as a field archer, where I'm constantly, no, I can understand why you tie yourself in knots. So if I'm trying to be the world's best field archer, I can totally understand why you want to get those arrows straight. Now, if that's coming from moving your sight angle, or whether it's come from fixing your canting, yeah, you need to get it. So when you go from 5 meters to 50, your arrows are still in the X. So I do understand that.
Yeah. I think that's the only thing I can think of as well. Field archery makes sense for, I think people might be wondering as well, because you mentioned about moving your sight. For a lot of recurve archers, I think, myself included, for a while, I felt like something was wrong if I needed to move my sight windage between distances. So I'd kind of tie myself up in knots, essentially, because I was canting slightly, and it wasn't a problem, but it was a little bit. I didn't want to screw up my tune, like we were saying earlier, just to fix this slight tracking issue. So for me, whenever I'd go from 90 to 70 or 70 to 50, and I think also 50 to 30, I can't remember, I just wrote it down. Oh, okay, I need 2.5 turns on my windage when I go from 90 to 70 to make sure the arrows are in line. And then likewise from 70 to 50. And people, I think inherently, kind of intuitively, that feels kind of a bit wrong. It's like, oh, I shouldn't need to. Yeah, shouldn't need to do that. But there's not really an issue as long as the grouping is good. This is the thing that's the be-all and end-all, is the grouping.
Yes.
And if you're really worried about it, one time, it's quite tricky to do, obviously, but one time I managed to just offset my sight bar the correct amount so that then it was straight when I moved it down and I didn't need to do the windage. But there's no problem, if anyone's watching this, there's no problem moving your windage between distances, because you just need to know that anyway. And I think it's actually a good thing if you know, okay, one turn is one color or stuff like that we've talked about before. So yeah, that's the kind of that's the lowdown on the walkback. If you really, really want to do a walkback and you're still really adamant on it, let's go through just a couple of walkback tips so that if anyone wants to still do it. The further you go, the more arrows you need to shoot, just because you need to get a good group. So when you shoot the first arrow at 5 meters or whatever with the long rod touching the target, you can shoot 1 or 2 arrows. It's going to be a good grouping. Then as you go further and further, then obviously you need to shoot more and more arrows. So what I would normally recommend is shoot maybe 1 or 2 ends ideally, and put a target pin in between the arrow group. So if you've got like a group of arrows and say like, okay, where's the center? Put the target pin in the center. And it goes without saying that a walkback is completely useless if there's any wind. I think you'd probably agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always, whatever type of tuning you're doing, the wind is just your enemy. So going back to the days when we were lucky enough to have an indoor 70-meter haul, that really is a gift for scenarios like this, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing with the walkback is you might need to do, if you are a field archer, for example, and you want to do the walkback, so you might need to do a couple in order to get your full range of, depending on your tuning, your full range of distance. For example, I don't think I could get from 5 meters to 60 meters in one go without the arrow falling off the target, because you pick an aiming spot that's off the top, and then by the end, the arrow's gone off the target. So you might need to do 5 to 35 or 40 meters, and you can get that in one stretch, and then you might need to move your sight and then do the next kind of stretch of it. But those are the really...
I've seen photos online of people, how they have their main target and then they lean another target on the ground up against it. That's a great way of getting yourself. So if you can stand another target in front of your main target, then you've got the full height and start right at the top. And then maybe you'll get to 50 meters, 60 meters before you have an issue. It gives you the best chance, doesn't it?
And also don't be surprised if your second or your third walk back goes higher than your first one. Sometimes you shoot your first one and then you step back a bit and it goes higher, and people are like, oh, how do I interpret this? This is a bit weird. But the first bit doesn't matter too much anyway, because you're so close that it's basically a straight line. But those are some walk back tips. Maybe we can just finish with something that's probably more useful than a walk back. and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this as well. But one of my favorite things to do is, obviously you're doing your bare shaft tuning, people are getting that rough tune, which is good, and then people often want to do the micro tuning, but realistically micro tuning takes weeks because you want like a huge amount of data. It's probably going to be windy, so you want mix of days and all that kind of stuff. And really micro tuning is only worth it if you're shooting like, well, what do you think it's worth it for? I think it's worth it if you're shooting maybe like 665, 670 plus, I think is when micro tuning might start to become worth it. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I was getting ready to say, you know, I had a handful of times scored 670 plus, and I couldn't really tell the difference.
Yeah.
And that's the honest truth. And if you can shoot 600 and you tell me you can see the difference, wonderful. I'm happy for you. But I'm just being honest. I just couldn't. I didn't get any worthwhile. I think it's my engineering scientific brain knows it won't accept any. Unless I've got data, I'm not just going to go along with it. Because I think it's so easy to put half a turn on your button, shoot a 58 and go, oh, this is brilliant. Yeah. Whereas my scientific brain will be like, no, now we've got to test it the other way, and we've got to at least get a credible amount of data. And then every time I do that, any difference just disappears.
Yeah.
So I think it's easy to treat it like your horoscope. If you want to see a connection, you will see a connection, no problem at all. But if you want to scientifically weigh it up, I just never was able to see a difference. You know, the only sort of long-term micro tuning where I would see a difference, if I was testing fletchings, I could see, you know, but we're talking weeks of work. Yeah. To then go, yeah, do you know what, on a 720, these fletchings are 3 points better than the others.
Yeah.
But it's difficult. But button pressure and that, no. And I repeatedly see it. If you can get your bare shafts to group with your fletched at 30 meters, you are 98% of the way there. And for the vast majority of people watching this video, just leave it there and go and work on your training and your technique.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Because the only other drill that I quite like after that bare shaft test, I'm glad you have the same kind of idea with the micro tuning, but the one I quite like doing is staying at that 30 meters, getting a big target face, the 122 centimeter, flipping it round so it's the white side, and then just watching the arrow flight as you shoot. So I feel like this is more useful than micro tuning for a lot of people, because if, for example, you shoot every arrow and you see the tail of the arrow is kicking to the left, tail of the arrow is kicking to the left on every single shot, because you've got that white background, it's really easy to see. And maybe if you can't see it first, this is a good chance to maybe use like a bright red knock or a bright green knock or whatever. But if you've got that consistent, if you've got that consistent hit of the arrow and you think, oh, the arrow flight's not quite there, the bare shaft looks good, but the arrow flight's not there. This is where actually for a lot of people, maybe adjusting the button can make a marked difference on how the arrow is flying. And if for you that then gives you a consistent reading, then this is really good. Obviously do it over multiple days, but having that consistency, because some people might find, okay, one of the arrows kicks to the left and then the next one's dead straight, the next one's dead straight, the next one's dead straight, and then another one kicks to the right. If that's the case, then it's just error in the release or what you're doing and that kind of thing. But if anyone's not tried it, I definitely recommend giving that a go. Something like that is much more beneficial and also less prone to error while you're doing it than a walkback test or something like that.
Sounds totally fine. I've never done that, but it makes perfect sense. I'd like to give that a go, actually.
Yeah, it's a decent little kind of arrow flight test, but hopefully that's been interesting. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below about whether you've done a walkback, whether you found anything useful from it, and whether, if you're a field archer in particular, that this is something you do, because I know obviously field archers do getting their sight adjustments and, you know, doing their, I don't know what you call it, their gauging and all that kind of stuff. So this is probably the prep for most field archers. So I'd be interested to hear that in the comments. But that's it for today, and we'll see you in the next video.